Hello again. Welcome back. The next step in our makeover of this 1970s era 848 is to make the slot wider or taller, since we tend to think in terms of the end of a stem being horizontal. And we know what to shoot for by comparing it or taking the measurements off of an 848, same model, FT, meaning fishtail, it's same profile. And notice how much wider, taller, whichever word you prefer, the stem on the right is. And getting reflections and stuff here is a pain, but I think you can see it. Anyway, that's a big deal if you're a smoker, as opposed to just somebody that's sees a pipe from across the room and wouldn't know the difference. This guy here is inviting all kinds of problems. It's difficult to get a standard pipe cleaner through it, and if you were to ever use one of those tapered ones, it could jam in there or crack the bite zone. I get a fair number of people sending me stuff like that to fix it after the fact. They'll snap off a pipe cleaner because they'll wiggle the wire and it'll break off in there, and that sounds like it ought to be easy to fix. It's not. So, and then there's of course just the volume of smoke coming through the thing is minimal. So good idea to make that thing the proper size. Now the catch is excuse me, we only want to remove material on one side of this. So you don't just grab any old needle file and begin to start cranking on that thing and realize after you've done that that you've enlarged it uniformly this way, because it so happens that this is not only too thin, but it's actually cut off center. And if you were to make it taller across the, this way, you run out of material there. You've got to only go the one direction where there's an abundance of material along this side here, or the bottom as it actually is. So be careful and pay attention to what you're doing, especially if you use rotary tools. Now, the last time I made a stem for this video business, you might recall I used one of these guys, which are sold as carving drills, and they were invented for duck decoy makers to put feathers on basswood wooden ducks. Sounds crazy, it's true. And they're like a drill bit, only in that they're long and thin. They don't work the same at all. You cannot make a hole this way with them. They are designed to cut while pressing sideways. And I prefer to take that needle tip off them and round it just a little bit like that. Makes them a little easier to handle. And they come in several sizes, and you have, or two sizes, and or it doesn't matter, you'll find them. I ended up having to manufacture a middle size. You can see that the one on the right here has the same basic shank diameter, exactly the same rather, as the one on the left, and then it's got a step down right here. It's because they didn't make the shape I wanted, or the size I wanted rather, so I made the thing. But unless you're a toolsmith kind of a guy, you don't want to have to mess with that. And I got some good news for you. There is a pipe world citizen who's been at it a long time. He grew up in it. His father was in the pipe business for decades in Columbus, Ohio. His name is Premal Chheda, Premalchheda. And he has a company that he had a storefront for a long time. He currently started a company called Raw Crafted. I happen to have a package with the spelling on here so you won't get it mixed up with anything else. The word raw the letter K, crafted, and he has gone into a sideline on top of his normal merchandise. He is selling some tools and supplies to people like you and me. And why I'm mentioning him specifically now is because he did something really smart. He came to visit me a few months ago. He saw this decoy carving tool and said, "Boy, howdy, that is slick. I like me that." And he got some and then decided, wait a minute, I can do better. I can make something that's not specific for duck decoy carvers that we adapt to the pipe world. I'll make something that's exactly the right tool for pipe makers. So he found a tooling company that took his drawings or his design, whatever the word is for this, and commissioned a supply of carving drills that are parallel sided and don't have a point on them. How slick is that? And they come in at least two sizes, maybe a third, I'm not sure. This one's a lot smaller. 1/16 of an inch, that'd be 5/64, I think. In any event, these are the real deal here. You don't have to modify them, and they're easier to use. They're closer to being idiot proof than these guys that have a fair learning curve. Now, you still have to know what you're doing and practice with these things. You can't put a blindfold on and use them, but having a pipe repair specific guy in our hobby is really cool. This is the neatest thing I've seen in a good while. Again, his name is Premolchetta. Great guy, easy to talk to, vastly knowledgeable. And his company is Raw Crafted, spelled with a K, in Columbus, Ohio. I'm sure you can track him down online to get some of these bits and other stuff that he sells. So, anyway, we're going to go ahead and dive in and cut away the material along the bottom of the slot. We're going to make it taller and then kind of see where we are. So I'm going to pause the camera and then restart it when I get things all chucked up here. Save some time. Alrighty. Got the tool mounted in the chuck, and at the risk of repeating myself yet again, how's that for a redundancy? This is one of these tools that goes very slowly. You can just barely get it to move if you want. None of this dental drill whiny stuff. If you're cutting, it's a slow not a slow process. The tool is designed to be used at low RPM. So don't buy one of these or something similar and chuck it up in a high-speed Dremel tool or Fordham and expect a good result. It ain't going to happen. So we're going to see if I can do this in real time. If I can get the thing to zoom in a little bit. Okay, I'm back from dicking around trying to get this thing to zoom and focus up close. Couldn't make it happen, so we're just going to roll with it here. Oh yeah. Now if you do it with like a pumping action, it clears the chip more efficiently. And as you get the slot approaching the height that you want, you can shift over to a thicker, stiffer cutting bit. And not have to dick around with files, because filing is a great finishing technique, but for material removal, in many cases, it's just tedious and it'll drive you crazy. As anybody who's cut funnels and slots by hand knows how that goes. Okay, I can't really do this as well as I'd like because I'm actually looking around the camera. You can't tell from how this is set up, but I'm trying to do it half blind, and you got to see how it cuts and the speed it should be used and all that. I'm afraid I'm going to have to actually do the work with the camera swung out of the way here. So I'm going to shut this off, do that, and then come back and show you the finished result. Sounds like a plan. Back in a minute. Okay, the slot is finished, and it's looking like a proper Dunhill now. The height is exactly, you don't need to have pin gauges at this, at the small sizes. A set of drill bits, lettered or numbered drill bits will work just fine for this kind of a thing. So anyway, that is now, looks just exactly like it came out of a Dunhill shop any other decade except the mid-1970s. And now we're going to move on to reshaping the outside of the stem, which is kind of sloppy. I've already pointed out earlier that there's this bulge in the bottom, and also noticed, now this is kind of tough to maybe see on camera here, but okay, notice the gleam line. This is a 1980s pipe, and that this line here that tip of my finger is tracing, notice how that stays straight down to the end, or very nearly. You get the idea. Now this guy, see the kink in it right there? The line kind of goes up a little, and then there's a sharp bend right there. Well, that's because the sides of this are somewhat flattened, that the curvature of the top of the stem was not finished. It's not rolled over the edges. They kind of got it looking okay from the side profile on the top, and then just chopped in the sides, and it's sort of like it's a rectangular shape instead of a smooth organic shape. So we're going to straighten that out, as well as thin the bite zone, which is way thicker than it ought to be, and then get rid of that bump that we were talking about before. I'm not sure how much of this is going to translate well onto the camera, for the same reason that I had to go off camera to do this slot. It's much more difficult than you would think to work not looking directly at the thing you're working on. That if all you can do is work according to what you see, it's like trying to do a remote TV screen kind of a thing, and it's a weird sensation that I'm not very good at it anyway. There are probably people who can do it, but not me so much. So what I'm going to do is set the camera up at an angle that allows me to work and film it, and if it doesn't look worth a damn when I'm done, I'll just not include it in this video project. I'll just skip it and let you know then that that's what I've done. But if it looks usable, I'll go ahead and incorporate it. But anyway, that's where we are, and coming along nice. This is going to be, as I stated early on, there will be people that have very strong opinions about doing this kind of work. So be sure you're ready for some heavy weather if you go in this direction with high dollar collectibles. I'll just leave it at that. You know what I'm talking about. A very passionate bunch are collectors. So that is it. I will set up the camera to finish working on the stem, and then we'll get to the glamour stuff. We'll reshape the bowl well, not reshape it, but we'll make it into what the all other examples of the pipe from different decades ended up looking like. And then, of course, have to refinish it. And then we'll be done. Alrighty then. See you in a minute.